Morning. Uh, starting a little late. I only signed on. I had another late night last night working. But I got a message from Emerson, one of my students, requesting that I go on. So I'm on here. Emerson, where are you? Hold on, let me just do that. I'm pretty sure he'll pop in really soon. All right, so I'm going to continue on The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell. That's right here. Sorry about my pop-ups and my notifications. I can't control that right now. So I'm going to continue this. This is the page that we ended on yesterday. Who's doing the singing? The magical harp, right? So the magical harp. They met the magical harp and the shoe, right? The lady that lived in the shoe, the store. Okay, I'm going to continue reading from here. There you are, Emerson. Hi, Emerson. So the harp offered to sing them a song, and then Connor said, no, thank you. So the harp took offense to this. I remember that day like it was yesterday, the harp said. There I was, minding my own business, being a slave for the giant, when suddenly the skinny peasant boy walks by, and I was like, hey there, why don't you rescue me? I could use some rescuing. The next thing I know, we're zooming down a beanstalk, being chased by a giant. Jack chopped down the beanstalk, and the giant fell to his death. Splat. Right on the Bo Peep Farms. Ooh, tongue twister there. It was quite a day. How terrifying, Alex said. It was the most excitement I had had in 100 years. Everything worked out just wonderfully, though. Jack and his mother became rich. I wasn't a slave anymore, and the Bo Peep family said the giant was the best fertilizer their farms had ever used. That's so wrong, Connor said to himself. What are you two doing here? The harp asked them with a big smile. Alex and Connor looked at each other, both afraid to answer. We're just visiting, Alex said. We've never been to the Red Riding Hood Kingdom before. We were in town and saw the beanstalk and wanted to see it up close, Connor said. Then welcome, the harp said. Don't you just love it here? I know I do. I've been around the world and I've never felt more comfortable. Sorry. It's so safe here. The people are all friendly farmers, and the best part is no wolves are allowed. Are you two thinking of moving? Wouldn't that be nice? I think you should move here and visit me every day. The harp was very chatty, and the twins could tell she was desperate for attention. Spending every day cooped in a house couldn't be easy. We're actually on our way home, Connor said. We just we just have to make a stop at Red Riding Hood's castle, and we'll be on our way. We've never been before. You should have Jack take you, the harp said. He's headed there this afternoon to meet with Queen Red Riding Hood. Brianna! Which Brianna is that? Oops, sorry. Hi, Brianna. Thanks for joining. Wait, hold on. Ugh. Every time I go off the screen, that's what happens. I have like two Briannas. Oh my gosh, how are you, Brianna? Have you been listening to my story reading? I didn't even know you were listening. Oh, because I have you. Well, I don't have you on this YouTube channel. I think you're following me on another YouTube channel, aren't you? On my personal YouTube channel. Oh, it's your first day. Oh, thanks for joining us. How did you hear about this one? Wait, I posted it somewhere, I think. How'd you find me? So this Brianna, she was. What grade are you in now, Brianna? I don't even know. Are you in like 8th grade? 9th grade? Oh my gosh, don't tell me you're in high school. So many questions I'm asking you. Oh my gosh, you're in 7th grade. So I had Brianna when she was in 4th grade. So that was like 3 years ago. It's good to see old students pop by. Good seeing you, even though I can't see you, but you could see me. All right, I'm going to continue reading. I lost track. I got distracted by Brianna. It was good seeing you, Brianna. Uh, Okay, you should have Jack take you. That's right. That's where I was. He is? Alex asked. Oh, yes, the harp said. He visits her at the end of every week and brings her a handmade basket every time. The harp looked side to side to make sure no one else was listening, but there was no one in sight. Now, you didn't hear this from me, the harp said excitedly with gossip in her eyes. Queen Red Riding Hood calls him to the castle every week and proposes to him. Poor thing has been in love with him since they were kids. Really? Alex said. Does that mean they're getting married? Oh, heavens no, the harp said. Jack can't stand her. He turns her down every time. Why would he do that? Doesn't he want to be king? Connor asked. His heart belongs to someone else. Ooh, I wonder who. The harp said sadly, and the strings on her back played a sad chord. Who does he love? Alex asked. Let me guess, Connor said. Little Miss Muffet. Of course not, the harp said. Miss Muffet married Georgie Porgy, but as everyone knows, he has had countless affairs. But that's another story. Back to Jack, Alex said. All right. Well, I'm not sure who he's in love with. I've never seen her, the harp said. All I know is he's never been the same since she's moved away. Alex and Connor looked at each other with the same questioning expression. Who could it be? Was that the reason he had been so gloomy? The door of the shack opened and Jack emerged with a basket made of pieces of wood he had just chopped. But Jack, oh, hey, Jack, I have a wonderful idea, the harp called out. Why don't you take these two with you to the castle? They've never been inside it before. Jack seemed hesitant. Oh, please, Mr. Jack, Alex pleaded. We won't be any trouble. Come on, Jack, make their day, the harp pleaded. All right, Jack said. Jack turned and began traveling down the town, or toward the town. The twins ran after him. Thanks so much, Alex called back to the harp. You're welcome, the harp said. Come back and visit me, please. Jack was a very fast walker. His legs was much longer than the twins, so they found it difficult to keep up with him. It's very kind of you to let us tag along, Alex said to Jack, but he never looked up from the ground. You're not much of a talker, are you? Connor said. I don't have much to say, Jack said. Connor nodded at him. He understood completely as they neared the town. Alex pulled Connor aside. How lucky is this? She said. If we get inside the castle and we get a hold of the basket, we'll be out of this kingdom in no time. They traveled into the town and reached the castle. There was a set of large wooden doors at the castle's entrance. Jack knocked on the door. A moment later, a small window in the middle of the door opened, and a set of eyes appeared. "Who goes there?" said a voice on the other side of the doors. "It's Jack," Jack said. "Again." "Who's that behind you?" the voice demanded, and the eyes looked over Jack's shoulder to Alex and Connor. They awkwardly waved. "Oh, what are your names again?" Jack asked the twins. "Alex and Connor," Alex told him, and gave him a thumbs up. "These are my friends, Alex and Connor. They're accompanying me to the castle today," Jack said. The doors opened, and the twins followed Jack inside the castle. It felt like a condensed version of Cinderella's palace. The halls weren't quite as long, and the furniture wasn't quite as nice. There were they there were many portraits hung on the walls, but they all were of Queen Red Riding Hood at various ages in different poses, each one more grand than the last. The twins waited with Jack in the hall outside another set of doors. Jack knocked on the doors and immediately took a seat on a bench outside them. This always takes a moment, Jack said. A series of footsteps and sounds of rushing about came from the other side of the doors. Wait, don't open the door. I'm not ready yet, someone whispered. Hand me that cape. No, no, not that one. The other one. With the hood. Hurry. Jack began to whistle as he waited. How do I look? What about my dress? Does it seem all right to you? The whispers continued. All right, I'm ready. Let him in, quickly. Jack stood up just as the doors were opened by a pink-faced and out-of-breath handmaiden. She escorted Jack inside, and the twins followed. They entered a long room with tall windows on both sides. The walls were covered in more portraits of the queen. Looking up from the floor was a giant wolf head and red eyes and a set of sharp teeth. It looked just like one of the wolves the twins had seen in the dwarf forest, and it alarmed them at first, before they discovered it was just a wolf skin rug spread out on the floor. The twins knew without asking that the rug must have been the big bad wolf himself at one point. At the very end of the room, perched elegantly, almost too elegantly, on a large throne was Queen Red Riding Hood. Hello, Jack, Queen Red Riding Hood said. Red Riding Hood was a very pretty young woman around the same age as Jack. She had bright blue eyes and blonde hair that was done up glamorously behind her crown. She wore a long red gown with a matching hooded cape and a pink corset. She wore a necklace with a massive diamond. Her shoulders were completely bare, and she wore a pair of long gloves with dozen sparkly rings on her fingers. She was showing too much skin, wearing too much makeup, and was dressed too well for the middle of the day. Hello, Red, Jack said. What a surprise. I wasn't expecting you. She said. Aha, Jack said. And I see you brought guests, Red asked. She was not happy to see that she and Jack were not alone. Yes, this is Alex and Connor, Jack said. Hello, Alex said bashfully. What's up, Red? Connor said, and was then elbowed by his sister. Hello, Red said behind a clenched and very fake smile. Welcome to my castle. Please have a seat. Red clapped her hands, and two servants placed a large cushy chair right next to her throne for Jack to sit on. They brought Alex and Connor each a small stool to sit on some distance away from Red and Jack. Jack moved the chair back away from the throne a couple feet before sitting on it. He handed Red the basket he had made for her. Is this for me? Red asked him. Oh, how thoughtful of you. You are just too sweet for words. I'll cherish it. You always do, Jack said. So tell me, what's new with you? Red asked Jack. She was leaning toward him as far as she possibly could without falling off her throne. Nothing much, Jack said. Same old, same old. His body language made it obvious he was ready to leave from the minute he'd sat down. How's the kingdom? Oh, I never bother myself with all the talk of economy and security and peasant needs and blah, 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 Red said. My granny takes care of all of that for me. She's much better at it than I would be anyway. Where am I? Brianna, you should listen from like chapter 1. You're like jumping in from like, what chapter is this? I think I'm on chapter 10. Hold on one second. I'm gonna open up my window, my curtains. There we go. Look at me. I'm a lot brighter now. Oh my goodness, I think I jumped ahead. Sorry about that. My hand slipped. Oh, there I am. Oops, I'm on the next page. Red got tired of holding the basket. She snapped her fingers, and her handmaiden collected the basket from her. Put it with the others, Red instructed. The handmaiden collected it from her and headed out of the room. The twins figured this was their chance. May we see the others? Alex asked. The others, Red asked. The other baskets, Alex said. Red was looking at her peculiarly. My brother loves baskets, Connor nodded, going along with it. I do. They're my most favorite thing ever, Connor said. You know what they say, life is better with baskets. Red was staring at them as if they were the strangest people she had ever met in her life. If you wish, she said, and shooed them off. Alex and Connor jumped up and followed the handmaiden out of the room and down a hall. Where does Queen Red Riding Hood keep all of her baskets? Alex asked the handmaiden, and then winked at Connor. She was very good at playing dumb. Oh, she wasn't very good at playing dumb. My bad. She has a chamber dedicated entirely to baskets, the handmaiden said. So she has a basket room? Connor asked. Yes, and if you received as many as she did a year, you would too, the handmaiden said. Remember, he comes every week. And there's how many weeks in a year? Brianna, Emerson, do you guys know how many weeks are in a year? Anybody? Anybody? I'll give you 10 seconds to answer while I drink my tea. Nobody's brave enough to answer. It's 52 weeks in a year, so I don't know how many years he's been coming by, but if he comes every week, it's 52 a year. How many are we talking about? Connor asked. You'll see, she said. The handmaiden opened the door, and 3 of them walked inside. The room was twice the size of the room they had just been in, and was filled from floor to ceiling with thousands and thousands of baskets. Ah, there you go. You guys actually knew. Some were on shelves, some were stacked neatly, and others were just piled around the room. The handmaiden tossed the basket from Jack in the pile on the side of the room. The queen gets them for birthdays, holidays, and any special occasion, the handmaiden said. Some are from villagers, some are from fens, and others are from the monarchs of neighboring kingdoms. Alex and Connor stared around the room with their mouths open. How could they ever find the basket they were looking for in all of this? Do you mind if we look around? Alex managed to say through her shock. I suppose, the handmaiden said. She looked at the twins curiously and then left them inside the basket room. The twins could barely breathe. They both felt as if a dumbbell had suddenly been tied to their chests. I have never felt so overwhelmed in my life, Connor declared. This is like trying to do the whole summer break packets of homework the day before school starts again, but 1,000 times worse. How are we going to look through all of these? It's not that bad, Alex tried convincing him, but she didn't even convince herself. We just need to start. You take one side and I'll take the other. Let's do this. They split and rapidly began looking through the piles and piles of basket for the one with the bark rim. They knew they didn't have much time and grew more anxious after each second. They had no idea there could be so many shapes and sizes and designs for baskets, like snowflakes. Each one was different from the next. Alex was paranoid that she had missed it. Connor kept getting splinters and kept shouting, ah, every time it happened. They had been more they had been there for almost an hour and still hadn't covered even a fourth of the room. They were making a huge mess. The room was twice as disorganized now as it had been when they'd entered it. Even Alex wasn't hesitating, throwing around baskets that she had already examined. This is impossible, Connor yelled, kicking a pile of baskets. Just as he kicked the pile, the door swung open and the handmaiden returned. Alex and Connor froze. She was appalled by the chaos they had caused. Uh-oh, they're probably going to get in trouble. I don't know what on earth you're doing, but I think it's time for you two to leave, she said. The handmaiden escorted them back to the throne room. This time she watched them like a hawk as they sat on their stools. Queen Red Riding Hood was literally hanging off her throne and grabbing hold of Jack's chair as she talked to him. The twins have never seen Jack look so bored and lifeless. Neither of them had noticed the twins' return. You know, Jack, Red said, circling her forearm with her finger. The Red Riding Hood kingdom isn't much of a kingdom without a king. Perhaps you should change the name to the Red Riding Hood Queendom, Jack said. Red laughed much harder than she should have. You're so funny. But that's not what I meant. What I'm trying to tell you, Jack, is that I've never been more ready to get married. If someone asked me for my hand in marriage today, I would say yes. Do you know anyone who might be interested in marrying me? In being king? Anyone? Anyone? A white dove suddenly flew by one of the windows outside and sat on the window ledge. As soon as Jack saw it, his entire face lit up. His eyes grew wide and he smiled. For once, he looked happy. He turned to Red. Clearly, she wasn't used to seeing him like this either. The twins could practically see her heart beating out of her chest as excitement filled her body. Was he going to propose? Was this the moment she had been waiting for so long? Red, Jack said. Yes, Jack, Red said. I have to go, Jack said, jumping up and heading out of the throne room. Red almost fell off her throne. Go, she said. Go where? Home, Jack called out, not even looking back at her. I'll see you next week. Red crossed her arms and pouted. He was the only thing preventing her from having everything. The twins felt it was best to leave with Jack, so they followed him out of the castle. Uh-oh, they didn't get their basket. It was wonderful meeting you, Alex, Connor, Jack said, and shook their hands. Likewise, Alex said. Thanks again for taking us to the castle. My pleasure. I hope to run into you someday soon, Jack said, and then headed in the direction of his home with a new bounce in his step. It was very strange. Jack was now acting like the person Alex had always thought he would be. What is that guy's deal? How does someone go from a zombie to a camp counselor in a matter of seconds? Connor said. I don't know, Alex said, looking after him as he walked away. He's a very odd man. Looks like we'll be sneaking into the castle after all, Connor said, and slumped to a seated position on the ground. At least we know what to expect tonight, and we already went through a good portion of the baskets, Alex said. We just have to wait until midnight. And in the meantime, I could really use a nap, Connor said. The twins traveled up the street and booked a room at the Shoe Inn. The room had a perfect view of Red Riding Hood's castle. It was somewhere near the shoe's tongue because a set of laces crossed through one of their walls. The room also had a working bathtub, and they both took turns using it, since they hadn't been able to bathe in so long. That was the best bath I think I'll ever have, Connor said. Ever have that happen to you? I know that like when I go on my Mexico missions during the summer, the showers are very cold because unless you like I set my alarm clock to 3 a.m. and then I wake up, I take a nice warm shower and then I go back to sleep. So I use up the hot water a little bit. But coming back home and that first shower after I come back home from my mission trips, oh, it's the best shower. It's like the longest shower I ever take. What about you guys? Emerson, Brianna, has that ever happened to you? You go to another country and you miss your own shower, hot showers, like you miss hot showers. Has that ever happened to you? I'll continue reading. You guys type it out, okay? Uh, I lost my place. Okay. They both decided to rest for a little bit, and as soon as their bodies touched the bed, they both fell into a deep sleep. They slept for a few hours and woke up shortly before midnight. What's our game plan for tonight? Connor said. It'll be the first time we'll ever be breaking and entering anywhere, so I'm extra anxious. Oh, Emerson, that's never happened to you? Brianna, where did you come back from when that happened to you? Let's take account of everything we have now, Alex said, and dumped all the contents of their bags onto the bed. We have 2 blankets, a bag of gold coins, a dagger, a lock of Rapunzel's hair, a glass slipper, a map, a journal, and a satchel of food. Wow, they got 9 things. Alex listed. We can use a dagger to cut a chunk of wood out of the basket, but it's going to be dark. We'll need some light. Let's take these lanterns, Connor said, and gathered lanterns that were on their bedsides. Great, Alex said. We should plan on leaving the kingdom right after, just in case we run into some trouble. We'll head to the east entrance of the kingdom, and that'll bring us close to the border of the fairy kingdom. Connor lowered his head. I was looking forward to coming back to this bed. At a quarter to midnight, Alex and Connor gathered all their things, lit their lanterns, and left the shoe inn. They walked across town to the castle. It was so quiet at night, not even farm animals were up this late. They hid behind behind Humpty Dumpty's wall and watched through the castle windows as guards patrolled the halls. Just a few more minutes and they'll leave, Alex said. A few minutes later, they saw fewer and fewer guards walk past the windows. Are they gone? Connor asked. They must be, Alex said. Let's go. They ran around to the back of the castle and saw a large kitchen through a set of windows. They hopped across the moat they knew they'd be able to and pulled at the window. Like the journal had said, it didn't have a lock and it opened easily. Alex crawled into the kitchen first. She was quiet as possible. The only sound she made from the intense sorry. The only sound she made came from the intense beats of her heart. Connor climbed in after and knocked over a stack of pots and pans. Alex was mortified. I'm going to kill you, she mouthed at him. Sorry, he mouthed back at her. They waited for a moment to see if anyone had heard the disturbance, but no one had. The twins left the kitchen and found themselves in a hallway with, to no surprise, more portraits of Red Riding Hood. That Red Riding Hood sure loves having her portraits painted, Connor said. Oh, yeah, Vietnam, Brianna. I remember when I went to Vietnam and I came back. Yes, that shower was the best. Maybe there are so many paintings of her because she's the first monarch the kingdom has ever had. It doesn't have the history the charming kingdom has, Alex said, or she's just a self-obsessed twit, Connor said. They traveled down the hall, then another one, then set up then up a set of stairs and down another hall. Do you know where you are going? Connor asked. I thought I was following you, Alex said. What? Since when do you follow me? Connor said. A shadow was creeping toward them from the hall. As it got closer, they could see it was the silhouette of a guard. A guard! Alex whispered and pointed at the shadow. They ran down the hall and entered the first room they found. The room was pitch black. Where are we now? Connor asked. Why are you asking me questions you know I don't have answers to? Alex said. Sorry, my phone just went off. Alex waited by the door and listened for the guard to pass by. Connor moved around the room with his hand stretched out in the darkness so he wouldn't bump into anything. Their eyes began to adjust to the darkness. Alex, I think I can see something. Connor walked right into what he thought was a doorway and suddenly saw a pale face staring back at him. He fell to the floor with fear. He screamed as quietly as he could. Alex, there's something standing over there in the doorway. He's so creepy and ugly, Connor said, pointing up. Alex ran to his side and squinted her eyes to see what he was talking about. That's not a doorway. That's a mirror, you idiot, Alex said. Oh, Connor said, and Alex helped him up to his feet. Oh my, what big claws you have, said a voice behind Alex and Connor, causing them to both jump up 5 feet into the air. Uh-oh. They turned to see an enormous four-poster bed with silky red sheets and lacy red curtains around it. In the bed, talking in her sleep, was Queen Red Riding Hood. We're in the Queen's bedroom, Connor whispered to Alex. Oh my, what big nose you have, Grandma, Red said, still very much asleep. Is she having a nightmare? Connor asked. Oh my, what big sharp teeth you have. Wolf! Red screamed and sat straight up in her bed, awake. Alex and Connor dropped to the floor out of her view. She was out of breath and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. She finally caught her breath. Not again, she said, and then, frustrated, laid back down to sleep. Alex and Connor were afraid to move. Did she go back to sleep yet? Connor asked. How are we supposed to tell? Alex asked. Oh my, what big strong arms you have, Jack, Red said. I'm guessing she's asleep, Connor said, and confidently stood. Oh my, what soft lips you have, Jack, Red said. Let's get out of here before we hear her describe anything else, Connor said. They emerged back into the hall and traveled around the castle for a while longer. All the halls looked so familiar it seemed impossible to find the basket room. Every time they Every time they thought they found the right door, they found themselves in a drawing room, or a dining room, or a ballroom. Let's find the entrance and retrace our steps to the throne room. Alex began, but Connor interrupted her. No need. The baskets are in here, are in there, he said, and pointed to a door beside them. But how do you know? Alex asked him. Because I remember that portrait of Red being next to the basket room, Connor said, and pointed to the portrait where Red Riding Hood was barely clothed, with only wolfskin to cover her. Alex gave Connor a dirty look. What? Alex asked with a smirk. It's memorable. They pushed the door open and found the room they had spent the entire afternoon in earlier. Let's take it from where we left off, Alex said. She and Connor split up and headed to the areas they had last searched. It had been hard during the day, but it was even harder at night since they only had light from their lanterns to go by. After a few hours of searching, their anxiety levels were as high as Jack's beanstalk. Suddenly, the twins heard a loud clink. What was that? Alex said. Alex, look up there, Connor said, pointing to the window. On the window ledge was a shiny X-shaped object. What is that? Alex said. It's a grappling hook, Connor said. It jerks slightly in a consistent pattern. I think someone's climbing up. Hide! They left their lanterns on the granite and dove behind a pile of baskets. A moment later, a figure appeared on the window ledge. It took out a sharp knife and cut out a large circle in the window and then quietly crawled into the room. It was a woman who the twins had never seen before. Her clothing was made out of plant leaves sewn together, and her hair was a shade of red so dark it almost seemed purple. The woman scanned the room and looked cautiously at the two lanterns. Did she know the twins were in there? Like an animal, the woman began sniffing around the room. She searched through the baskets as she sniffed, discarding some and tossing them behind her. Do you guys know who it is? I know Emerson knows who it is. Brianna, can you guess who it is? So they're in a fairy tale land right now. So they're meeting all these fairy tale characters. So they met Cinderella already. They met Red Riding Hood. Who do you think this is trespassing into Red Riding Hood's house or castle? Who do you think it could be? So she was wearing plant leaves sewn together, and her hair was a shade of red so dark it seemed purple. Emerson. Let's see. Let's give Brianna some time to guess. Do you have any idea, Brianna? Is she in here? Oh, I think she left. Okay, Emerson, go ahead. Go ahead, Emerson. I'm gonna flip the page, okay, and keep reading because I know you know who it is. She went around the room using her nose as her guide until finally she locked in on one direction. She climbed on top of the pile of baskets to reach the top of a shelf. She reached her hand to the back of the shelf and pulled out a basket. It had a rim made of tree bark. Alex and Connor looked at each other. There it is. The woman carved a big chunk of bark out of the basket and then tucked it safely into her belt. She put the basket back on the shelf and climbed down the pile of baskets and headed for the window. She was just about to climb through the window when she heard an "ah" come from the other side of the room. Connor had given himself another splinter from hiding behind the baskets. "Connor!" Alex mouthed. "Sorry," he mouthed back. The woman walked toward where they were hiding. She squinted in their direction for a moment. Alex and Connor were both too frightened to even breathe. They knew, she knew they were there. What was she going to do to them? The woman looked to the ground at one of their lanterns, and a coy smile appeared on her face. She kicked it in a pile of baskets and disappeared through the window and back down the rope connected to the grappling hook. That was a close one, Connor said. Good thing she didn't find us, or we'd be in some. Connor, look! Alex said. The pile of baskets the woman had kicked the lantern into was on fire. Oh boy, Connor said. We've got to get out of here. Not until I get a piece of that basket, Alex said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a dagger. She ran up to the pile of baskets to the top of the shelf, just as she had seen the woman do. She wasn't as tall as the woman, so she had to reach farther to get it. Alex, hurry, Connor said. The fire was growing and spreading around the room to the different piles of stacks of baskets. He tried blowing the fire out, but it didn't work. These were large flames, no birthday candles. Alex had to climb up onto the shelf to reach the basket, but she finally wrapped her fingers around it. Gotcha, Alex said, pulling it out. The bark around the rim had two chunks missing, one from whoever had written the journal and the other from whoever that woman was. Alex sank her dagger into the basket and began cutting out a piece of it. Alex, unless you want to leave this place extra crispy, I suggest you hurry, Connor yelled. Half of the room was ablaze. It was becoming unbearably hot inside the room. Dark smoke was filling the air, making it hard to breathe. I got it, Alex said, and made her way down to Connor. The flames had covered the door they'd enter from. How do we get out of here? Alex yelled. The sound of running footsteps came from the hall outside the door. Through the flames, the twins could see the faces of several alarmed guards. Fire! Fire in the castle! A guard yelled. Get the queen to safety. Get some water. Another guard pointed directly at the twins. You two, stay where you are. Not likely, Connor yelled. He picked up a particularly heavy basket and threw it at the window, causing it to shatter. He grabbed his sister's hand and pulled her toward it. They breathed in the fresh air from outside. Look, the watermill is right below us, Connor said, and started climbing out the window and down toward it. He helped his sister out of the window, and they climbed down the watermill together. Halfway down, flames burst through all the windows in the basket room. The entire room was an inferno. The watermill began to turn from the twins' weight, and then fell straight into the moat, which wouldn't have been such a rough landing if the moat had been deeper than 3 feet. The twins clambered out of the moat and began running as fast as they could away from the castle. No guards or soldiers were chasing them. They all must have been inside the castle trying to put out the fire. Alex and Connor ran out of the town and were on their way toward the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood kingdom in a matter of minutes. They only looked back once and saw that almost half of the castle was now on fire. A thick trail of smoke filled the sky. Was that the fourth or fifth time we've narrowly escaped death this week? Connor asked. Who was that woman? Alex asked. And why was she looking for the basket, too? Thank God she found it, otherwise, we might never have, Connor said. The most worrisome thought came to Alex's mind. Connor, you don't think someone else is collecting items for the wishing spell, do you? He had to think about it, but she could see it was just as troubling for him to consider it as it was for her. I doubt it, Connor said. Think about all the trouble the man who wrote the journal went through to learn about it. I'd be shocked if someone else knew anything about it. Alex nodded. They both knew it was very unlikely, but the possibility still lingered in their heads. A few hours later, the twins could see the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood kingdom wall in the distance. The guards must have extinguished the fire in the castle, but there was no more smoke filling the air. The night at its darkest was just before dawn. As they reached the gate, they could see something moving near it. Spooked from the events earlier, Alex and Connor dove behind a bush and watched from afar. It was a man pacing near the gate. He was tall and seemed young. There was something oddly familiar about him. Is that Jack? Alex asked. Connor took a closer look. It is. What is he doing all the way out here? Suddenly, a hooded figure came into view on the other side of the gate. Who's that? Connor asked. Jack carefully approached the gate. There was so much tension between him and whoever was on the other side of the gate that even the twins could feel it. He had been waiting for whoever it was all night. Hello, Jack, said the hooded figure. Hello, Goldie, he said, and the twins realized who it was. Goldilocks. She was wearing a dark maroon coat they had seen her wear in the dwarf forests. How do they know each other? Alex asked. Connor shook his head. No idea. Remember, Goldilocks is the one that's wanted right now, right? I saw your dove, Jack said. I knew you must have sent it. I did, Goldilocks said. I knew you would recognize it. Doves are hard to train these days. The twins could tell from the way they were standing that Goldilocks and Jack had much to say to each other, but they said very little. Instead, they just started Instead, they just stared into each other's eyes with their bodies pressed against the bars between them. I hate these bars between us, Jack said. It's either the bars of this gate or the bars of a prison cell, I'm afraid, Goldilocks said. I worry about you constantly, Jack said. I'm a big girl. I can take care of myself, Goldilocks said. I wish you would let me come with you, Jack said. You know, I'd pack my things and leave right now if you would let me. No sense in ruining two lives, Goldilocks said. You'll find someone else someday. You've been saying that since you left, yet here I am, year after year, meeting you in the shadows, Jack said. She's the one he's in love with, Alex said, putting the pieces together. She's the reason Jack won't marry Red Riding Hood. She's the girl the harp was telling us about. Oh, Connor said, this is like a soap opera. Jack placed his hands over Goldilocks' hands. I swear, if I ever find the person who wrote you that letter, I'll kill them, Jack said. You're the reason. Oh, they're the reason for this whole mess. What is done, and it can never be undone, Goldilocks said, and she and Jack were touching foreheads through the bars. One day, I'll clear your name, Jack said. I promise. Then we can be together. Clear my name, Goldilocks said, and backed away from him. I'm a fugitive, Jack. I steal, I run, I even kill when I have to. No one can clear me of that. It's who I am. It's what I've become. It didn't start off as your fault, and you know it, Jack said. Goldilocks grew silent. I love you, Jack said, and I know you love me. You don't have to say it back. I just know. I'm a criminal, and you're a hero, Goldilocks said, with teary eyes. A flame may love a snowflake, but they can never be together without harming each other. Then let me melt, Jack said. He reached through the gate and pulled Goldilocks close to him, and they kissed. It was passionate, pure, and long overdue. Alex became misty-eyed. Connor scrunched his face as if he was smelling something foul. Good thing those bars are between them, Connor said. Shut up, Connor, Alex said. Goldilocks pushed herself away from Jack. I have to go, she said. I have to be as far away from this place as I can as I can get by sunrise. Let me come with you, Jack begged. No, Goldilocks said. When will I see you next? A week? A month? A year? He asked. Porridge walked up behind Goldilocks and leapt up onto the horse's back and took hold of the reins. Just wait for the dove, she said, and rode off into the night on her cream-colored horse. Jack watched her until she wasn't visible anymore. Suddenly, all the life in his body faded away, and he once again became the sad man the twins had met earlier. He sadly turned away from the gate and slowly headed home. I guess not every fairy tale character gets a happily ever after, Alex said. Alex and Connor ran up the gate. It was locked, so they had to climb over it, finally making their way out of the Red Riding Hood kingdom just as the sun started to rise. Hi, Haiti. It's been good. I've been very busy. Oh, by the way, that's the end of the chapter, and I'll read the next chapter tomorrow. Been very busy. I've been actually making and selling these masks. These are ready to be sewn, but there's a lot. There's a lot in here. Look at all that. Here, let me show you a couple that I made. Oh! So I've been making these masks and selling. I've been all night just sewing. Isn't it so cute? Here's one. Here's another. This print is called Tokidoki, and it's like Hello Kitty. I'm like Hello Kitty obsessed. These are all Hello Kitty Tokidoki. Look at that. There's a Hello Kitty on this side. There's this one. There's this one. There's this one. Oh, that's upside down. I need to put rubber bands in them. This one's not Hello Kitty, but it's adorbs. It's all hearts. I think Miss Cal Garcia bought one of these for me. This one has a hidden Hello Kitty right at the nose. There it is. It's a very popular print. A lot of people love that one. Oh. I like this one. Isn't that pretty? I'm like modeling for you right now. Let's put this away. And I've been making bow ties for hairs, so people can tie their hair and have a bow. Yeah. One of my friends who's a doctor featured my stuff. He wore my stuff on his TikTok video. I don't know, like he has like so many. I think he's at 80,000 followers. It's like crazy. All right. Emerson, you want me to read book 2? You want me to go into book 2? Yes? Yes? No? Yes? Thank you, Haiti. Okay. I need to log out of this one. I'm going to post it, and then I'll see you in like 2 minutes, okay? All right, see you guys back in a little bit.